Hello, this is Lars Ferdine. I'm here with Gary Hawkeye Vanna to talk about the 100th anniversary of the McBain versus Lake City rivalry. What is the deal with this 100th anniversary game? I thought we just celebrated the 50th anniversary 3 years ago.
Well, you're right. 3 years ago we did have a 50th anniversary celebration. But through the summer there was some construction going on last year. They were cleaning out an area and they found this trophy. And I looked at the trophy, and it is a championship trophy from 1927. And I asked myself the exact same question, going, wait a minute, how can there be a championship trophy from 1927 if modern era football is only 50 years old? And that put me on a quest to do research about what was going on with the football and the history of the football program. And there was a whole generation of football that's been lost in the archives. So I went and been doing research for the past year to come up with it. And we've discovered through that in 1924, we started off with a football team that lasted for about 13 years. And we'll talk more about that as we're going on. So it stopped in 1937 and didn't get reborn until 1971. And that's why we call it the modern era. And that's when they actually joined the MHSAA. The previous one was just an independent type of team, almost like a JV team.
So this is 27. How did you find out about 1924? What kind of research did you do?
Well, I had a lot of help on that. I went to Stephen Koster. He has a Facebook page called Misaki History, as well as Mark View at the Cadillac News. In fact, Mark View and I were going through the archives in 1924, and he had to get out the rubber gloves, and he got the old archive because it's not on microfiche. You would think the Cadillac News would have it on microfiche, but he had to pull it out, and we had to gently open the page,
like
and
the
it had
Constitution
to be
type
that's
thing,
right. It had to be a dust-free room. I mean, I asked him if I had to put a face mask on or not to breathe on it. But between that, he helped me do the research, and through them, we came to the conclusion about this being the 100th year. And he certified that the first game McBain played was against Lake City in 1924.
So they call you Hawkeye because you can see stuff that's on the field that normal people can't see. But now you're doing research back to the 20s. I love it. So how did football start in McBain?
Well, what happened is that in 1924, McBain hired a teacher who later became a principal and the superintendent, William DeHart. William DeHart was actually from Central State Normal School. Do you know what that is?
No.
That's CMU. That's Central Michigan University nowadays. It was a
Nice.
teacher college for Michigan State in the Central State. It was actually renamed 3 times. So anyways, he was a former varsity baseball player. In 1923, he came in and he helped organize and put together the very first football team to play a 1 game at the end of the season against Lake City.
So just 1 game. So how did that game end up?
Well, not as good as we would hope, as it was victorious for Lake City, 68-0.
So no trophy for McBain, huh?
No trophy at that point.
Ooh. So,
I'll tell you what, though, if you ever read the article in the Misaki Republic, that's what the Misaki Sentinel used to be before this Misaki Sentinel, you actually read that. It's quite an interesting article because they use some really crazy terms to describe how the game worked.
what are you talking about? Some of these interesting descriptions. What are they?
Well, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to give you a little quiz. I'm going to use some of the vocab words. We're going to start easy and work our way up and see if you could translate these 1924 terms until 2024 vernacular.
Okay.
Incomplete.
Like an incomplete pass?
That's right, incomplete.
Incomplete, nice.
Interference.
Pushing the receiver type thing before the ball gets there?
Blocking.
What?
They called blocking interference back in the day.
Oh, could you block, though?
Yes.
So it wasn't illegal, it was just called interference. Okay, that's cool.
Spilling the runner.
Spilling, the tackling.
Tackling, that's right. Buck the line.
Buck the line. I don't know.
A defensive player that makes penetration into the backfield against the offense was called bucking the line. Sparring.
I don't know.
Ground attack or a ground game.
A run.
Running,
Run.
multiple running. And through the
Through
receiver.
the receiver. That'd be the passing game.
Wrong again. It actually said, in the article, it talks about how the kicker kicked the ball all the way into the end zone and threw the receiver to a touchback, and they took the ball at the 20-yard line. It's a touchback.
Oh, there you go.
So,
Oh, wow. So how come the overall record between McBain and Lake City is 29 and 27 all time? That equals 56 games between both teams. That isn't even close to 100.
that is true. And as what we're talking about is this is the anniversary of the first time McBain faced Lake City. But in 1937, McBain stopped playing football and did not restart until 1971. And hence, the 50-year anniversary of modern-day football is when they restarted in 1971.
So back in the day, I've heard some things, but do you have any information on why football was stopped in 1937?
Well, back then the Cadillac News didn't do a great job of covering the Tri-County area like they do nowadays, but that was pre-Mark View, so what do you expect? So
that's a nice compliment right there.
You like that?
Yeah.
Let's slip that in there for Mark. Or Mike Dunn, so that would have been way done cool. So there's just two rumors I've been able to research. I've never been able to find confirmation. I even went to Stephen Coster to try and get some help. We never got confirmation. But the rumor number one, and this is the boring story that I heard from your dad, that just ran out of interest from the players. They didn't have enough people to field the team.
So I do have a little background on that. I know my dad would tell stories about my grandpa Bonico playing, but my great-grandpa would say, you can only pick one sport. We're farmers, potato season, all that stuff. I heard sometimes they snuck away and still played a game. I mean, there were some interesting things, but a lot of farmers in this area, farming was the number one priority. Games were the second.
Well, I mean, on a side note, you do realize that school was closed for 2 weeks in the fall for potato harvesting.
Nice.
Anyways, a more interesting story I heard about why the season ended was known as the Park City Potato War, which involved the Bonicos.
No way.
But this is another podcast that we'll do in the future for you. But what the story is, during the game when the Bonico boys came to save the day, there was a serious injury during the game. Some say it was the superintendent's son or the principal's son broke his back. Other stories had someone actually dying on the field. But either way, the very next Monday, the school board came out and they canceled football. And I think this story has a little bit more legs than just round of numbers, because that's why McBain was so reluctant until bringing it back until 1971.
That was a long time.
And that was with the class of Don Sheppers. And let me say, there was some Gildies. Dave Gildy was a part of that, and Dave Meyering was involved in that group right there and helping bring football back to us. So I believe that meant there was enough time healing from that death that we were able to come back to playing some football.
So now that we know that this is the 100th year, what are we going to do to honor this date?
Well, we've been working really hard to try and get this day ready. What we have is we designed these commemorative 100th year stickers. They're going to be put on the helmets of every single player for both McBain and Lake City. It's going to go on the back, kind of like the Michigan logo or the this Wolverine or the Ohio State or the dog bone from Georgia, something like that. It's going to go on the back to commemorate that. In addition to that, the coaches have each agreed to wear commemorative hats with our 100-year logo on it. The McBain will be wearing green hats with the logo. Lake City coaches will be wearing the red hats. We're in negotiation with the officials right now that they will be wearing black hats with the logo on it, except for the head official, and he's going to get a white hat with the logo on it, and of course they will keep that. Plus, in addition to that, we have an online store for anybody out there that would like to buy commemorative merchandise. Feel free to go and do that. Judy Gildy, she's working on a steel print, 3 of them, one for the Lake City High School, one for McBain High School, of the original article that was ran in 1924 in the Missaukee Republic. And there's going to be a third one that the senior class is going to run for a silent auction at the game for anybody else that would like to have that piece of history in their own back pocket.
So that's really cool. Hey, with you doing all this research, what is the most interesting thing that you learned from all this research?
Well, this has really gotten me excited about a lot about the history of here, but one thing that I found was really unique is there used to be a Missaukee County champion there, and I was like, why would you have a champion? It's just McBain and Lake City, but there was actually a third high school in the late 1920s, early 1930s. Yeah, Merritt had a high school. They actually had a football team in the late 1920s, early 30s that played against McBain and Lake City, and between those 3 teams, we had a county championship.
Hey, thank you so much, Gary, for bringing all this lost history back to life. And for you, we look forward to seeing you on October 4th for the 100th anniversary of the Lake City McBain Rivalry. Now, if you want to own your piece of history, go to the Lake City School or Rambler Review Facebook page for a link in the B&D online store. Otherwise, contact B&D Custom Sewn directly at 231-825-2628. This is Lars Ferdine, and we hope you have enjoyed this podcast.